But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits by your big pharmaceutical companies? And that too, I must tell you now, generated and deepened that disappointment and resentment on our part, because we felt like life in the Northern Hemisphere is much more important than life in the global South. And these are issues that need to be addressed. And I'm glad that we are all seated here like this, because we've got to get to the heart of these matters and address them.
In today's video, we take a look at the World Leaders Summit, which is currently ongoing in Paris, France. In this particular video, the President of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, gave a keynote address and talked about certain things that are very, very important and need to be addressed. Now, one critical thing that he mentioned is that the image of Africa, which the world portrays out there, that Africans are just beggars, is something that needs a critical concern. During the era of COVID-19, where vaccines were needed by everyone around the globe, vaccines were given to people in the northern hemispheres, and countries were holding on or hoarding to these vaccines. African countries were not getting the vaccines for them to be able to vaccinate people in Africa, making it look like life in the northern hemisphere is of higher importance than life in the southern hemisphere here in Africa. He gave this keynote address and spoke out his heart. So let us keep watching this video and listen to exactly what he said. But before that, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, just locate the subscribe button down there. Click on the subscribe button. Click as well on the notification bell, and we'll make an extensive discussion in the end. Let's keep on watching.
Now I come to promises that have been made. And Chancellor Scholz was saying, we've got to walk the talk. Yes, we want to see the talk being walked. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday said at the dinner, $100 billion was promised per year. And he was saying, I've never seen that. And many of us will testify that that $100 billion has never really been made available. And this should stand out as something that needs to be addressed. Because sometimes we sit at conferences like this and say, yes, we'll make this available, and we believe you. We believe you, but now the tire must hit the tar. We must now see action flowing from that. Now, I want to then talk about something very practical. President Sassou Nguesso raised it yesterday. He said he would be happy if flowing from this summit, we do something very practical on the infrastructure side. Having said that 600 million people in Africa do not have electricity, and yet we've got all the resources to generate electricity, particularly the mighty Congo River, and that there have been plans to build a number of power stations that will generate, in my calculation, up to 70,000 megawatts. And he said, and I want to speak in support of this proposal, that to prove that these summits are not summits where we just talk, flowing from the Paris COP as well as others, let us now put money on the table and collectively say we are going to address this mega project. A mega project which will in the end generate electricity for up to 12, 15 African countries all at one go. And this is a project that I think the multilateral development banks here working together, the call that you've made, President Macron, can actually fund. And where, as we rise from this, we should be able to say the Inga Dam is now going to be developed into the Inga Power Station, the one that President Sassou Nguesso mentioned, and the next one as well. If we can do that, then we as Africans will now be convinced that these summits are really meaningful. We will now go home and say, you know what, it's worthwhile going to these summits, coming to Europe, and to listen to all the promises because they are willing to act on the promises. This is what President Macron, I believe, will be one of the most important outcomes. The reform of the financial architecture, as well as a practical project, infrastructure project that is going to add a lot of value. President Sisi and I have been talking about a railway from Cape Town to Cairo for years. We will leave that for the next summit, but the one on generating electricity and building power stations on the Inga Dam is the most important, that is immediate, that I believe needs to be addressed now. Let's get that done, and then we will be convinced that you are serious with the promises that you make.
Nowadays, I believe that African leaders are waking up to the core and facing the realities on the ground. At this global front, African leaders are voicing out what they think is not the best and how they should be treated. This is very important for all of us as Africans so that our image will not always be looked down upon. Let me know your thoughts and comments in the suggestion box below. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video.